Well, a few words regarding Obama's summit, a nuclear summit, and the recent treaty with Russia regarding nuclear arms. Now, this entire subject is actually very, very complicated. First off, I would like to say that yes, it's applaudable to say that you want to reduce nuclear weapons or the nuclear weapons stockpile of the major nations involved. And mainly we're only talking about the United States and Russia here. Now, since the Cold War ended, those weapons, let's say, and I probably need to define this more precisely, and I will. Let's say the reduction in strategic nuclear weapons has actually taken place. You had roughly 6,000 warheads or nuclear bombs ready to go, as defined as strategic weapons. Now this means, you know, an all-out nuclear blast which will basically annihilate a major city in a matter of seconds. And these weapons were drastically reduced on both sides, from 6,000 to, you know, perhaps 2,000 each so far. And the Cold War nuclear doctrine, which was basically a premise of equal forces against each other, assured a kind of mutual destruction. If somebody launches their weapons first, then you're going to be annihilated. And if you have enough if you have enough warning, then you're going to shoot your missiles back, and the other party is annihilated as well. It's called the principle of mutual destruction, which is actually, it worked. Okay, there wasn't a nuclear war during the Cold War between the United States and Russia. We should actually be thankful for that. Now, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the nuclear picture, as far as weapons and the access to the materials which can be built, you know, which can be gathered to build these weapons, has changed. So the equation has changed. So, regarding the speech, I haven't listened to the whole thing, but regarding the speech that Obama gave, that basically we are now ironically faced with a situation where nuclear danger is far more acute than it was during the Cold War, I would actually agree with him on that. The problem comes in with the START treaty. It's good to, you know, reduce your nuclear weapons stockpile in terms of strategic weapons. I mean, these are the big things, okay? The Hiroshima or much larger type bombs. The problem comes in that the START treaty does not address tactical nuclear weapons at all. It is simply left off the table. And it's pushed off to the conventional side because the sides are blurred in terms of the effectiveness, or let's say the destructive power of these weapons. You know, I'm in favor of reducing the nuclear arms race because, for one thing, it's extremely deadly and it's very destructive. It costs a lot of money. But once you sign on to the belief that you're just going to reduce these big bombs and just produce a bunch of little bombs in sort of to diffuse things, there's also a problem with that. Not to mention that the dangers from, let's say, terrorism, and nobody's even addressing why terrorism is even happening to start with. So let's presume these dangers are real, but you know, these dangers do not just pertain to nuclear weapons and the possession or acquisition mode to get these materials for non-state actors. I mean, biological and chemical weapons are a hell of a lot easier to obtain for any so-called terrorist organization than producing a nuclear weapon that can wipe out an entire city. So this is why this simplification of these issues is really worrisome to me. For one thing, if you disregard tactical nuclear weapons, in other words, you know, they're called mini nukes. So you'll take out, let's say, instead of a whole city, you'll take out a quarter of a city, or some production facility somewhere, and the nuclear fallout will happen. That's basically inhabitable after everything there is dead. And to regard this as a more plausible and acceptable policy in terms of nuclear disarmament is probably a logical fallacy. Now, you know, the thing with nuclear weapons, as with gene technology and so on, is once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. So none of these problems will be solved, you know, during this administration or during any other, for that matter, because it's an ongoing process. But what we should not be led to believe is this dulling of minds that tells you that simply because we're reducing strategic weapons, you know, the hydrogen bombs, which could destroy, still at this rate, even with the reduction rate, you know, the world 20 times over, that this presents some sort of real solution to our problems. I was going to read you the technical difference between strategic and tactical nuclear weapons, but it's completely besides the point, because it merges, the whole thing merges. And my criticism in terms of this nuclear summit, for one thing, would be, if you don't want non-state actors to gain access to nuclear weapons materials such as, you know, highly enriched uranium, which is available in research facilities, by the way, not just, you know, in military facilities, then the one thing that probably should have been done is to invite Iran to the table, instead of disinviting them and trying to grow a consensus of nuclear powers and non-nuclear powers against that nation, and basically using it as a platform to demonize it, which will solve nothing in the long run. So, in my view, this summit does not address the fundamental problems of our time. It is perhaps a step in the right direction, but you know, if you're not willing to negotiate with your perceived enemy, then that tells you something about yourself, I would say. So no, the answers are not easy. And yes, there's a good possibility that somebody mad enough at the US due to our foreign policy insistence on dominating everybody else is going to get mad enough and blow a few things up. So this is what should be examined here, not the weapons systems themselves.